mics off. And good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Real Talk on Parental Alienation and Family Court tonight with our guest, Vernon Beck, and we have Andy Martens with us as usual. Welcome, Andy and Vernon. Thank you to both of you for joining us here. And tonight we have a very important topic. Vernon Beck is from Canada Court Watch. He's the founder of Canada Court Watch here in Oakville, Ontario. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, and Andy is from the Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario. We are pretty close together, but we welcome everybody worldwide, the US, the UK. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to have Vernon tell us all about family court. And if you're involved in the family court and you're pressured into signing documents that you have no clue what you're signing, Vernon is the guy that's going to help you with it tonight. Andy, welcome. Good to see you again. Turn your mic on.
These winter hours are killing me, Mary.
Well, Andy, we're getting old and it's hard to stay up like these young fellas out there. But it's pretty dark at this time of night. So, what can we do?
Yeah, it is. It gets dark at 5:19 now. The only saving grace to this is that we got lighted earlier in the morning. So it's like we're almost, we're in the dark 14 hours. That's a long time. I'm lighting up like a pumpkin. Sort of memories of Halloween.
We thought you were like an alien, but yes, the more darkness we have, the more people suffer with mental health issues. And what better topic tonight to talk about how people go into these depressions and start hoarding and all kinds of really, really hard situations to get out of.
Well, I had a family member. I experienced that firsthand, and it's not fun.
No, I guess not. So welcome, Vernon.
Thank you, Mary and Andy, for inviting me onto the show.
You're welcome.
I had suggested this topic to Mary a little while ago as a result of a court case I was involved in. And basically what happened, there was a father that went into a Toronto court, and he had a lawyer with him, and he met the mother's lawyer in the courthouse. And basically what is happening, what the system is doing a lot, they're trying to get people into alternate dispute resolution processes, commonly referred to as ADR. And so what happened during this process is that they were trying to pressure the parties to use what they refer to as a PC, or a parenting coordinator. Now, I often work as a parenting coordinator myself. I've been doing it for years. But in this case here, the father was, they kind of split from the court hearing itself. And the mother's lawyer suggested, how about we go in.
One sec, Vernon. Andy, can you turn your mic off? We're getting some waves in here. Thank you. Sorry, Vernon, go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, the father was in the court, and the mother's lawyer suggested, well, why don't we take it into a meeting room, Your Honor, to see if we can get the parties to come to some kind of agreement toward alternate dispute resolution. It sounds good. Okay, it sounds like you're trying to encourage the parties to resolve things, trying to keep them out of court, and of course, the judges support this too. It gets it out of their jurisdiction and hopefully get the parties. So, what happened? They went down into one of these meeting rooms. Now, here you have a father. He doesn't make an awful lot of money, but he's self-employed. But he's sitting there paying a lawyer $450 an hour. Okay. Mm-hmm. The mother's in the same room there. She's paying $450 an hour as well. And the mother's lawyer said, well, we've got to select out from some parenting coordinators. And that's the term that they called it, parenting coordinator. Well, to most laypersons, coordination sounds like a good idea. You get people to cooperate, you get them to coordinate. It sounds wonderful. And the mother's lawyer brought out the names of 3 parenting coordinators who said, well, here's the names of 3 people, and you have to pick one of them. You know, these are well-respected people. They've been around for years. Now, the father had no idea who they were, had never met them, never heard their names before. But his lawyer is sitting there saying, hey, it sounds like a good idea, you know, get a parenting coordinator involved, and that's going to save you a lot of money. So the father is being misled into believing that this is going to save money. And the mother's lawyer is going on, well, if you don't sign this and select one of these 3, you know, we're going to have to be back in court, and the judge is going to have to decide, and it's going to cost you, you know, thousands of dollars. So here you got a father under pressure. The clock is ticking at $450 an hour for him. And he's been given 3 names by the mother's lawyer. And of course, his lawyer doesn't know any of these people either, but just simply telling him, oh, just sign it. It's okay. You know, parenting coordinator. So the father felt pressured. And so what he did, he agreed to sign for one of those 3 names. And it was a Toronto parenting coordinator. So anyways, so that they went back in the courtroom, and of course the mother's lawyer told the judge, well, things have worked out, Your Honor. We've got the mother and the father, they've agreed to hire a parenting coordinator. And so they called an adjournment and to set another court date so that the parenting coordinator could get involved. Mm-hmm. So everything sounds great. Father's walking out. Well, the billing's going to stop, and he can get back on to work again. All he signed was an agreement that said that he would use this person's name. Well, about 4 days later, he gets a copy of the contract from this so-called PC, or parenting coordinator. He gets a copy of the contract, pretty extensive one. And before we finish the show here, I'll show you sections of this contract. Well, he found out that this parenting coordinator was actually a lawyer, which there's nothing wrong with that. A parenting coordinator can be a lawyer, but they're engaged in parenting coordination work. Well, he looked at the contract. It was, I think, about maybe 18 pages long. But in reality, when you start reading the clauses in it, it was an arbitration contract.
Oh.
Okay.
So he got swindled, duped?
Yeah. So basically, there was arbitration clauses in there, and I'll be talking about the danger. As far as I'm concerned, and there's certainly articles have been written about it, arbitration is not suitable for family law. And if any readers are out there, if you ever get the opportunity about where it's been proposed to go into arbitration, arbitration is not suitable for family law when you have children involved. Bottom line. Well, anyways, 4 days later, the contract came in, and once he looked at it, it was basically an arbitration agreement. Even though she called herself a parenting coordinator, it just, when you get into the contract, it talks about, well, the parenting coordinator shall make decisions for the family. The parenting coordinator shall do this. And the parties shall be obliged to follow those recommendations of the parenting coordinator. Well, when you look carefully, you suddenly realize this isn't a parenting coordinating document, it's arbitration. And once you sign an arbitration agreement, you give up your rights to attend court. It's over and done with. You cannot go back to court, and it could cost you thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to challenge an arbitrator's ruling. In fact, the process is so complicated that most people could never even challenge it. So there's what's happening a lot of times. Another thing that'll happen is that the same type of thing, another thing that people will be asked to sign is not necessarily a PC agreement, but they could be asked to sign a voluntary consent order, which is, in a sense, not like arbitration, but what they're doing is the parties are agreeing to make a court order to what they've agreed to. And usually that is made in a meeting in the courthouse under pressure. So what happens? People get coerced into signing these consent agreements. Now, so that goes back to the judge. So the judge is making what they refer to as a consent order. Okay, order on consent. Well, in a case of an order on a consent, the judge bears no liability or no responsibility for what may happen, because the judge is only doing what the parents of the children wish. And if they both agree, then the judge just puts his name on the dotted line, and basically the parents take all the responsibility. And I can tell you I've had cases over the years where children have lost their lives, have been sexually assaulted and murdered because judges have put their signatures on a consent order.
How sad.
So getting into this whole concept of why people are being pressured into doing these things, or why lawyers and that are being pressured to do this, it's because the system is broken right now. The family court system is completely, utterly broken today. I think most people know that. And in fact, some of the highest judicial authorities in Canada, and what I'm talking about tonight, probably I'm not sure about in the US, but this is what's going on in Canada. But some of the highest judicial authorities in this country have openly stated publicly that the family court system is broken. In fact, I met with one of these judges personally. I met with him, Thomas Cromwell, who was on the Supreme Court of Canada a few years ago up at Carleton University. And here's his quote, and you can find it on the internet, and it's on some of our website material. And this is the Supreme Court of Canada, one of the most respected Supreme Court of Canada judges. He states, estranged spouses and their children are seriously damaged by the adversarial system, and that judges, lawyers, and law schools must embrace a culture of mediation and settlement. Those are his actual quotes, and one of the top jurists in Canada. So basically, children are being harmed. And what's happening, a lot of judges are being implicated. The orders that these judges are making are resulting in children dying. They are resulting in children being abused. They are resulting in children being sexually assaulted. And they are resulting in murders.
Exactly. Suicides.
And suicides. I've had a number of suicides over the years. I've been involved with murders. I've been involved with sexual assaults cases. So this is what he's referring to. So if the court system and the judges and the lawyers are able to get people to get decisions affecting the children made outside of the judge's jurisdiction, either by arbitration, mediation, or whatever, what that does, it takes the liability off the judges, and so that the court system can't be blamed. How can members of the public go and start blaming our judges when the judge can say, well, I did what the parents wanted. I'm there to respect their wishes. Okay, well, so what they're trying to do is to divert liability and responsibility. And of course, from the lawyer's perspective, there's a lot of money.
Yes.
Because as we all know, if you get a couple into mediation, it's $300 to $500 an hour. And in this case, I was just talking about with this one father, $450 an hour to go into arbitration.
It's kids for profit.
Yeah. And basically with the profit now, I'm going to show you some clauses out of that contract. Or read some of them because we can't share the maybe some of the readers afterwards, if they want to see a copy of the analysis that I did of the arbitration contract, you can see how bad it is. Basically, the arbitration contracts are designed to protect the arbitrators, ensure secrecy, ensure that there's no accountability by the arbitrators or any of the lawyers involved, and of course, to make everybody lots of money.
Right.
Now, getting back to that same case I was just talking about, we caught the father before he signed the actual contract, because once you sign the contract, you're in trouble. You've yielded your rights to go to family court. So he refused to sign the contract. And I was in court with him about a month and a half ago, and the mother's lawyer went back to court and spent $22,500 for 1 day, for 1.5 hour appearance on behalf of the mother, to get the father to force the father to use that parenting coordinator, they called it. They spent that much money because I was in court, sat there, and that's what she was asking for. And the judge refused. And it cost the mother $22,500 for 1.5 hours in the courtroom.
And it could have gone to the children. It could have gone to the children for education, clothing, food, shelter. I mean, when parents do this, is there a reason why they do it, Vernon? Like, you've been there for many, many years. I've been there for 2 decades. I mean, I know it's a lot of vengeance towards the other parent so that they never get to see the kids. Why would the parent rather spend money on a lawyer than go in there and share the children?
Well, as we know now, in this case here, the mother in this case here was a narcissist, a very powerful narcissist. She was very sick. I even interviewed the children who told me about some of the things that she did, including assaulting her children in their very home. Okay, so unfortunately, when you have the instance of a narcissist, they will spend almost unlimited amounts of money. And she was on this particular mother was on the list in Ontario where you make over $100,000 a year. The Sunshine List, I think it's called here in Ontario, Canada. She's on that list. So she had lots of money. And of course, the lawyers take advantage of this, the bad lawyers. Now, I'm not to say all lawyers are bad, because I've got some very good lawyers who are friends, who I know are very honorable. And,
right.
And certainly say the same thing about some of their colleagues.
Yes, they're good, there are bad.
Yeah, and it all boiled down is that the father had signed at the courthouse in that room, just his signature that he would work with that person. That's all. Just the signature saying he would work with that PC, but he had never seen the contract. So that's how they were trying to trick him. You get them to agree to a name or a person, and then you do not find the details until later. Now, luckily, in that day, the judge would not agree, and basically, and in fact, on that particular day, the judge actually took one of the flyers from our organization and actually was reading it over up on the bench for community-based parenting coordination services, because that's what we offer, is community-based parenting coordination services.
That should be in all courts, especially in Ontario here. You know, we are such strong advocates and we know what goes on in there. So when you can hand a judge pamphlets that, you know, black and white, it helps them understand what is going on.
Yeah, well, education is a problem. And as I said, that's why you asked why people go to lawyers. Well, you know, people, when they get in divorce and separation, they have no idea about what they're getting into. They have no idea. And of course, society has come to the just understanding that, hey, if you're going to get separated, go see a lawyer. So it's almost become standard knowledge and practice that you go see a lawyer. So people go to a lawyer not really understanding what's going on. And yes, education of families is very important prior to that case. Getting into the court process, you can save an awful lot of money getting into it. Now we are moving into that direction because more than 50% of people today in Canada are representing themselves simply because they cannot afford the high price of lawyers these days. So what's happening is that when you get into these where people are being pressured into these agreements, okay, you're easing the burden on the courts. So there's going to be less lineup of cases. You're lessening the liability that the judges will bear in the event of a child that gets murdered or raped or killed. And now everything is in a private setting. And of course, everybody's making lots of money. And when you look at some of these contracts, for instance, in this one arbitrator's contract for this father I was talking about, you could not get out of it. It actually stated in the contract, once you signed it, you cannot terminate services. And it even went so far to say that if you could not pay the bill, and it was $10,000 up front and in $10,000 increments, that if you ran out of money and couldn't pay the bill, the contract was extended indefinitely until the bill was paid in full. So in other words, you couldn't even go back to court. You can't pay
So
the
you couldn't get your
arbitrator's
kids.
bill, and then you can't even go back to court because you've got to pay the bill. And that's how
That's like being held hostage, and you're bribed. You're forced. Your hands are tied.
It's under the criminal code. It's blackmail and extortion.
Yeah.
is what it boils down to. But the key thing is that when you get these contracts, it says that you've also agreed. That's when they very carefully they put in there that when you sign that name, that you say that you've agreed, that you've got legal advice, and that you have signed this document without any coercion or undue influence. So basically, once you sign it, you're finished. So people aren't realizing this, and the lawyers are taking them down a road. It frees up the judge, takes the judge off the hook, and gets them onto a path that basically it'll bankrupt most people.
Unbelievable.
So that's kind of what's happens now. There's a few systems. I'm just looking at some of my notes here. So getting the people to move to these alternate dispute resolution methods is what they're doing. Now, here's what some of the common methods that they use have. Collaborative law was a term that came out probably about 25 years ago. For those that have heard that term, collaborative law is a system where you hire a lawyer who's a collaborative lawyer, and the other person hires a collaborative lawyer. Now, those lawyers cannot go to court. That's part of the agreement. When you sign, you cannot go to court. So the idea of collaborative lawyers, it's like mediation, but you're paying lawyers' rate. You're paying $400 or $500 an hour for a collaborative lawyer, and they basically try to work things out. But a collaborative lawyer, you cannot take them to court. So
there's no judge. There's no judge.
Okay, it's like mediation, but they call it collaborative law. I've given it a nice name. I wrote an article 25 years ago that I published, and some people may still find it out there on Google. It's called Collaborative Law, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing is the name of the article that I wrote.
I've read that one.
Okay.
I've read it.
I wrote that article about 25 years ago. And so basically you get these lawyers, you'll end up spending maybe $10,000 or $15,000 as they negotiate back and forth and try to work things out. And you can't you reach a few areas where you can't settle. So the collaborative lawyers say, well, we can't settle for you and we can't take you to court. So you have to release them. They no longer can be your lawyer if you go to court. So now you have to hire a new lawyer. Each party has to hire a new lawyer. And now you've got to introduce that new lawyer all the way from the beginning, the history, the documents, and with the collaborative, a lot of the discussions in the collaborative law, you can't bring over to use in with your new lawyers, because discussions in the collaborative law process are confidential. So now you're in a process where you're bankrupt before you can even get back into court. Mediation is, of course, the other alternate dispute that a lot of people can use. Now, that's certainly more reasonable. And again, with mediation, they cannot force arbitration on you with mediation. That's the one thing, the benefit of mediation. And for many people, mediation can work out good if you've got reasonable people, and usually with limited funding. True parenting coordination is probably one of the most effective, as long as it doesn't contain arbitration mixed in with it. And that's what this case I was talking about, what the PC or the parent coordinator had mixed into her contract, was arbitration. And once you get at arbitration, you can't go back to court. Now, parenting coordination I'm a parenting coordinator, and Mary, as you know, we work with family conflict services and we do parenting coordinating services. Well, parenting coordinating services is voluntary, and it doesn't tie people into contracts. And basically, you try to work out people's problems, and if you can't work it out, then people still retain their fundamental right to go to court. And that's one of the fundamental rights of Canadians, and is the right to go before a judge.
Right.
And a parenting coordination process should never take away that right. So,
and what if they do? What can a targeted parent do when they can't go to court?
Well, you can always go to court as long as you don't sign away your rights to an arbitration process.
Okay.
Okay, that's the key thing. And that's where many people are getting the wrong legal advice. And in the case of the father I'm talking about, his lawyer didn't even know who the arbitrator was. None of them had ever seen a contract that the arbitrator uses. He was just simply saying, just go along with it. What the hell, sounds like a good idea to me. And unfortunately, as we know, many lawyers don't give proper legal advice as they should.
So it's bad advice.
It's unfortunately happens every day.
Wow.
So people
Let me just get Andy in there for a minute, because I want to get Andy's opinion.
Yeah, this is really confusing, Vernon, because if you've got a parent coordinator as a lawyer, doesn't the father have to pay double? Like, if I'm confused, I'm sure some of the viewers are confused. If they come in, and I think the whole thing is criminal. Somebody should take this whole process of being forced to sign into criminal court and take them to court on the process. I can't believe the average person in this province or country is being asked to do that.
Well, as we know, most people, when they get into the divorce or separation divorce, they don't have the knowledge at all. They don't know about the system. They don't know about the courts. They just believe that, we've got family courts here, and that's where you're to go. And of course, you go online and you read you read lawyers' websites, and they talk about the nice things they do. We help people. We help you resolve your problems. Lots of nice language. And, you even go onto the courts websites for the Department of Justice, and they talk about these nice things. We encourage parents to do this and take parenting courses and things like that. But in reality, those who, once they get in the system, they realize that it's not the way it's painted when you get onto these lawyers' websites and government websites. And there's a lot of misleading information out there. And so it's not until a lot of people have already expended a lot of money do they suddenly wake up, because they can't afford it anymore.
That's right.
They get broke.
They lose their homes, their assets, equity, everything.
Yeah. And quite often it's through mistakes. Sometimes it's even the court clerks. I've seen grandparents lose their homes. I was in a case about 3 years or 4 years ago where the grandparents lost their home simply because their name got put on to the style and cause for the court papers. They were put on with the respondent's name by accident. It got left on there. And when the other lawyer, in that case there for the mother, won, the lawyer put a lien on the grandparents' home and they forced sale of their home right here in Toronto. They lost everything. The grandparents lost everything. And it was a very prestigious, supposedly prestigious law firm right here in Toronto, Ontario. I'm not going to mention the name because they'll probably try to sue me if I do on this program. But
anything to make money.
Put it this way, they destroyed the grandparents, they destroyed the children, they destroyed the family, all for the sake of money. And I have video recordings of the children. In that case there, they were young boys, just teenagers, describing what was really going on. In fact, I was in the courtroom when, and this may come as a shock to readers, and I'm not afraid to say it because I witnessed a judge in a Toronto courthouse order police officers in that room, in this case, to arrest a 14-year-old boy. Right in the courtroom, 3 officers restrained him, one officer on each wrist. One put him in a bear hug because he had come into the courthouse with an affidavit describing how he was being abused by his mother. And we found out later that the lawyer and the judge were friends. And basically, the boy was assaulted and arrested, and we were threatened. Myself and the father and other family members were threatened with arrest if we did not leave the courthouse. And we were escorted out to the street, and we were told we could not even be around the courthouse. And that boy was unlawfully detained inside that court building for 2.5 hours by the police. Okay. And these are some of the, and
what did the parents say about this, Vernon?
Well, put it this way, the one parent managed to alienate the child. That the child was never heard of after that. Okay. We got one recording from the boy in secret. He made a rendezvous with us afterwards, and we recorded him where he described where the police told him that he would be put in the care of the Children's Aid Society if he did not go with his abusive mother.
At 14?
At 14 years of age, yes.
Wow.
3 officers took him right down to the back entrance to the courthouse, shoved him in a car and said, you better go, or otherwise you're going to end up in Children's Aid Society. And the boy did manage to get a secret message out to us, and we did record him. We met him at Scarborough Town Center, and he described the whole thing, how he was threatened by the judge, arrested by the police, and we tried to get transcripts. And guess what? Everything's gone. Even the reports there's no reports from the police. The police officers that did it were transferred to other courts. It was a complete cover-up by the courts.
And that's what they do. They transfer judges. I know the judge from my case 19 years ago, he came from a criminal court. He was one of those judges where you could hire them to come and do the case. But anyways, he got promoted a week later to supernumerary judge in Kitchener, Ontario, which is only like 20 minutes from me. I mean, this is what they do. They pass them on once they've been corrupt and caught. They move them on to somewhere else.
Certainly, that happens. And again, that case I'm just talking about is fairly unique and a little bit off topic. But that gets into another topic of the shenanigans that go on in the courts themselves, which is why, as you're aware, we need cameras in our courtrooms.
Yes, well, we had General Doug Downey, Andy and I interviewed, and you helped us with the questions. And we still need to address him and educate him on some of the stuff that he said that he told us. And I would like to do a podcast with that as well, because our attorneys generals out there are the one reason why we don't have cameras in the court. I mean, they're putting all these hybrid hearings in, $165 million worth. Attorney General Doug Downey announced the other day. And I'm thinking, where are they getting all this money from to put in to do hybrid hearings? What is hybrid hearings? I mean, we already got cameras in there. How about just switch on a switch, and then taxpayers won't have to pay money all the time through these, corrupt court cases. Families won't lose their children.
Yeah,
What do you
certainly.
think, Andy?
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, they gotta wake up here, but I think it's bigger than that. This government does what they want to do, and if people don't like it, then vote them out in the next election. It's as simple as that. Doug Ford is going to the electorate next year, calling it an early election, so that's the opportunity for people that don't agree with him to vote him out. There's a couple of other premiers in Eastern Canada that have done the same thing. And the consensus is that the incumbent premier is calling an early election will lose it. New Brunswick's a good example. Brand new premier took office yesterday. And Nova Scotia has called an early election there as well. So, this is not right, but you got to do it. If you don't do it their way, then they'll get rid of you. It's like it doesn't matter what you think. But
Right.
Vern, I wanted to ask you a question. Where have we gone wrong? Because my parents got divorced 50 plus years ago. I don't think this justice system in the family court was that way back 50, 53 years ago as it is today. Where did this system get off the rails to the way it is today? Because it's ruining people's lives.
I might be able to give you a little bit of feedback on that one, Andy, because, like I said, I guess I've been involved with this for about 28 years, and there's no doubt what I believe in is that there is a generation where wealth has accumulated, okay, over the last 40, 50 years. So there's a lot of money there. People have when the economy has been good, and of course, Western society, was better off than the rest of the world. People in our generation, we were able to accumulate a lot of wealth. We were able to buy houses, have cars, have things like that. Kids today can't afford that, but this generation, this is where the divorces and separations, what are they fighting for? The houses, child support, the kids. And it's because generally between the two parents, there is a lot of assets there. Or if anything, even if you don't have assets now, the child support payments are such that even if you don't have a lot of money, it's still a very profitable thing to go after now. So it's become about money, and now the lawyers, for instance, they have, they're the ones that get these programs going. They convince the government, well, we have children that need help, and people can't afford lawyers. We need to get legal aid. So now you get the lawyers now setting up the legal aid industry. Who benefits? It's the lawyers. The taxpayers pay for this. Okay. So that's what's happening. It's all about money. And so now you get all these other professionals. You have the therapist set up. You have the counseling services. You have the Children's Aid Society. You have all these organizations making money. Okay. And now that people are running out of money and the government's getting tight, this is why things are getting a bit tight. And this is why the lawyers and the judges are trying to push people over into alternate dispute resolution processes. Some of it's good. I would support parenting coordination and mediation, providing you've got honest, reliable people who are at the helm in running those programs. But that's, I think, where a lot of it's come from. I mean, in my earlier years, I married very young. I was very young, and I was a single dad when I was 22 years. I think I was 25 years of age. I was a single dad with 2 kids. I never got any child support. I never even asked for it. Okay, I just took my 2 kids, raised them. I even to this day, 50 years later, I can still talk to the mother. We can still have when our kids invite us for Christmas dinner, we have no problem. Okay, but today it's become money. People have become more money hungry, and there's more money for people to fight about today. And that's where the lawyers now, family law is one of the is the most profitable section of the legal industry today. I did a.
Okay, guys, I've got to go, but that was a great answer, Vern, and you're a wealth of information every time we talk to you.
Okay, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Okay.
See you
Bye,
later.
Andy. We're up to 45 minutes here, Vernon. I'm not sure. We have a question from Bernadette Sepulveda. She said that they take the Tommy Bolin Museum down. I'm not sure what the Tommy Bolin Museum is. Do you know anything about that, Vernon?
I don't know about that. No.
Okay, I'm sorry, Bernadette. I don't know how we could answer what this question is about, but go ahead, Vernon.
Where's the reader from, the U.S. or from?
I'm not sure, but she could. Bernadette, can you please let us know where you're calling or texting from, and maybe we could get to the bottom of this question. So we're got about 10-15 minutes left.
Okay, I'll move on here. And again, so as I said, there's a general thrust to try to get people to settle, to sign documents. So people are under pressure at the courthouses to sign these documents. Now, so how do we avoid these things? Some tips that I can give people. Hopefully, get yourself educated. People need to get educated about the process, about the family court process, about the problem with lawyers, about the problems with children's lawyers, about the problems with children's aid and child protection agencies, about how these agencies fail, so that, from my experience, the vast majority of people do poorly in court because they lack the knowledge at the early stages of their case to understand how to effectively present their case and to come up with solutions.
It's overwhelming. I mean, people don't, a lot of people don't want to be in family court, and a lot of people get forced in there. So yeah, we don't know about it.
Yeah. So knowledge is power, and people have to take a parenting education program that relates to family court and the best interests of the children, because many of the lawyers will engage an adversarial position. They want to create he said, she said scenario, because that's how they make their money. Writing back and forth, sending emails back and forth. So
they stretch it out.
Yeah. So the first thing is to educate before getting into anything. More than 50% of people today represent themselves, and they use what's called unbundled services. That's where you don't have a lawyer who represents you, but the other lawyer, if the other side has a lawyer, that lawyer will communicate to you directly, and you get to decide what you want to share with the lawyer on an unbundled services basis. Right. Therefore, you're saving a tremendous amount of money, and you're only getting legal help in those areas where you think you need it.
Right. And they help you with the paperwork, right?
Yeah, you can get, the lawyers can help with the paperwork. There are coaches out there, family coaches out there. There are paralegals. There are people out there who can help you with things like forms and that for a fraction of the cost that a lawyer can. But for, real issues that you don't really understand, or you feel you need more confident in dealing with, that's where a lawyer can come in. But more than 50% of people today work on an unbundled services basis. There's actually a project. It's called the Self-Represented Litigants Project. You can Google that, but it's run by university professors out of Windsor, and they're there to push people to learn about unbundled services and how to represent yourself, because in today's economic climate, people cannot afford high-priced lawyers like they used to.
Mm.
And so how can you avoid that? So number one is get educated. Number two is to try to promote virtual hearings and virtual conferences whenever possible. Now, for those people that know about case conferences and settlement conferences, sometimes people used to go to a courthouse and they would have what's called a case conference. Well, you're there just to talk about it. There's a judge there and you're in the room. The judge can't really make very many orders on the main issues, but you talk about things. But what happens is that people will spend $3,000 to $5,000 sometimes for a case conference because they're paying for the time for the lawyer to drive to the courthouse. You get to the courthouse, quite often you'll sit in the waiting room for maybe an hour. You're paying your lawyer while you're sitting there. And then you go into the room, and by the time you get out of there, a lawyer's going to charge you for a half a day, plus traveling cost for the gas. So $450 an hour times 4. Okay, it's pretty easy to see what you're racking up to $2,000 for that visit.
Mm-hmm.
Some cases will have 3 or 4 conferences. Now, luckily today, technology is allowing Zoom conferences. Perfect. Okay. And so you can do it from your home. You're not paying for the lawyer to go. And you're not going to get into a position where you're being pressured to sign something because you're not physically at that courthouse. There are not people standing over your back looking at you with a pen in their hand saying, you better sign this, and hitting you on the back of the head. Okay. To say, you better put your signature on here. So by using virtual conferences will help avoid that problem. It'll give you the opportunity to think, to talk, to review things before you put your pen on paper.
Right.
Even court hearings, they can do virtually. So again, people should be encouraging court hearings. Okay, not necessarily trials. I still would like, trials, because the judge quite often needs to see the witnesses firsthand, maybe sitting in that bench next to the judge. But even a hearing where a judge can make an order, if the documents are there electronically and you've got a proper hearing, the judge is going to see all the parties on his or her computer screen. Everybody will be carefully documented, be recorded, and that's the stage for video recording as well, because once the courts have got cameras set up to record the judge, and it becomes easy. All the courts have to do is to press the record button on Zoom, and now you have the proceeding properly recorded, video recorded, and it doesn't cost the court system nothing.
Can a Zoom recording be altered?
It would be very difficult for the Zoom recording to be difficult because, again, it's difficult to alter, unlike audio recordings that are altered all the time from the court process. And I have had court reporters call me to say that they've been ordered to fix the transcripts, but it's very difficult visually to alter, because if you move your mouth or you're moving your head, it's going to show on a video, whereas with
Right.
audio, and also just like we're watching StreamYard right now, at least on my screen, there's a clock ticking away up there.
Yes.
It tells me we're at 49 minutes and 22 seconds. Well, it becomes very difficult to adjust
The time.
the time and the video. So there's been a resistance by the lawyers and the judges for that, even though it would save the government millions and millions of dollars to simply have as many Zoom conferences and hearings on Zoom, and to simply press that record button on Zoom and to make those recordings available to the parties at a very minimal cost, maybe $25. The courts could probably make money, even if they sold the recording for $25. And most parties would probably be more than willing to pay for an accurate video recording.
Right.
Okay.
So what's the difference between hybrid hearings and Zoom hearings?
Well, I'm not quite sure when you're talking about a hybrid hearing, when you're referring to Zoom. Zoom, I'm not quite sure, but if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a hybrid could be where some of the parties, maybe because of distance, are on Zoom. Maybe the judge is looking at a party, and it has happened. I've been on, for
I've
instance,
been on one recently. I had a trial
yeah,
on Zoom.
there may actually be people at the courthouse, but because of the remote distance of a party, that party is going to be on a TV screen in the courtroom.
Right.
That
We
that
were. And so that's what hybrid, because that's how our court case was.
yeah, and again,
Because we were in Montreal, Toronto, London,
yeah,
here in Hamilton.
don't quote me on the term hybrid. I'd probably have to Google it, but it's probably something like that where
Well, that's what
not
Doug,
everybody.
Attorney General, just announced $165 million worth of hybrid hearings,
Yeah,
dollars into hybrid hearing.
it would be good to probably find out from the Attorney General's office what exactly do they mean by hybrid hearings. But anyways, I suspect it has something to do with incorporating video technology and recordings. But what they really need is not just having hybrid hearings. They need them video recorded is what they need.
Right, right, for sure.
Yeah.
For
So that's
accountability and transparency, because,
yeah.
there's so much crookedness going on that, it's frustrating to a person that has lost everything, and yet they saw the corruption and none of it was true. These people are devastated, like, where do they go once that is discovered?
Yeah.
So
Well, we all know, and many people know, and as I quoted just earlier from one of the top judges in Canada, the system is broken and it's harming children. We all know that. And
yes,
it's a case of everybody becoming aware. And just like we're talking today, one of the little things that people have to learn about the system is not to get sucked into and tricked into signing your name away under coercion by lawyers and that. So always take time to sign. Don't quote me exactly, but I believe in consumer law. If you sign a contract in your home, okay, you can revoke that contract. I think 46 or 96 hours. There's something like that that actually gives you a person who signed something. It gives them a waiting period where they can actually revoke their signature. And that's a form of protection to give people a time to think about it. But what's going on in these courts is they get you in these rooms, you're paying all this money, and you're under pressure, and you are being coerced to sign away your life under those environments with no opportunity to withdraw
get
your
out.
name. So
Yeah,
say, for instance, if you're asked to sign, let's get a order on consent. Okay. And the lawyer is telling you, just get it. The judge will be happy. We'll get out of court. It's going to save you money. Person signs it. And 15 minutes later, the judge has got it. The judges put their signature on it. And before you even leave the courthouse, from the time you sign that document, that consent document, by the time that the judge's signature comes out, it's 20 minutes. And you're paying for your lawyer to wait while you wait for the judge's endorsement to come out.
right.
And that's how quick. So the idea is you should never really sign anything until you really understand it and have had a chance to get proper legal advice. Having a lawyer is not always proper legal advice. It's just, words of a lawyer And believe me, a lot of people have not had good legal advice from many lawyers.
Right. I'm one of them too. And I thought I had a good lawyer, but I saw the trail that if I went further, it would have turned out a lot different. So
some of my final words, I know we're getting up near there, and when it comes to arbitration, I'm going to emphasize the issue of arbitration. And to all the readers and viewers out there, arbitration has no place in family law today with kids and the complexities of raising children in today's society. If you are ever in a position where you are being pressured to sign an arbitration agreement, never get into arbitration and give up your rights to attend family court. That is my opinion based on what I have seen with people and how arbitration has destroyed them. There are a number of articles that you can look on the internet about how arbitration is bad for families. In fact, there is one article here that during research I did, actually from 2023, actually just last year, there was actually a ruling in the Ontario Superior Court of Justice that said that persons cannot be ordered to attend arbitration, cannot be forced to attend arbitration. They can only be ordered to attend mediation. And that came out of the Superior Court of Justice just in 2023.
wow.
So
Wow.
those are the things.
That's good to know.
Unless you sign your signature on an arbitration contract, nobody can force your signature on that piece of paper. But once you do, you might as well sign your own death certificate.
Wow. That's so bad. Well, Vernon, thank you. It's been a very informative podcast tonight. And you have done so much work for us advocates out there to help others. And we are grateful for everything that you do, the parent coordinating plans. And, you're such a good source of information and resources for us out there. So we'll have you back again when you have other things that you could share with us soon. It's always a pleasure to have you. So parents, alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children, don't give up. There's always Vernon Beck here at Canada Court Watch. You could always contact me, myself, Mary Auld-Kovacs, and we've got advocates out there in Hamilton, Toronto, Niagara Falls. We're everywhere. We're here to help you in Ontario. But like I said, this is a global pandemic. Family court is the same no matter where we are. They're taking our children, our assets, our homes, and they're leaving us all in this fight and fight mode. And sometimes our heads are spinning. So reach out to an advocate or Vernon Beck here at Canada Court Watch. Contact Andy, myself, and we'll see you next time. So until then, thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Real Talk on Parental Alienation. And today was family court arbitration. Don't go there. Remember, it's not someplace that you can get out of. So thank you, Vernon. And
Okay,
Andy out there.
Yeah, good night, Mary.
You're welcome. So have a pleasant evening, everyone. Good night.
Take care.
Bye.